name is Mayank Kapoor. I'm the Business Development Director for Information Communication Electronics sector for Prince George's County. And I am very excited to invite everybody of you to October, which we call the Cybersecurity Month. And we want to, it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, where we want to educate our community, our residents, how important cybersecurity is and how we can be safe and do the right practices. So we have the pleasure of having Jonathan Lee from NGEN, who is our local Prince George's County company. They've been here for a while. They do tremendous work all across in federal, in commercial sector, and we have invited them and we wanted to pick their brain on some cybersecurity and learn some of the exciting stuff they do. So, Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company before we get into some questions which we're eager to hear from you.
Sure. Thank you, Maya. Thank you for having me here on your show. My name is Jonathan Lee. I'm the sales and marketing manager for a company called NGEN. We've been in the area for 28 years, founded in '92. We've specialized in helping small businesses and some of the local government agencies with IT, really handling the whole department of IT, from help desk, monitoring, network setup, and all those things. You know, security is a big priority. So over the years, cybersecurity, the demand has increasingly grown. So we've really been finding new ways and really strategically approaching cybersecurity, using industry best practices, the best tools out there. So it's like you said, it's extremely important for us to really focus on cybersecurity in this day and age.
Yeah, especially in this day and age where things are. We've not been to our office for almost 6 months, and
Right.
we're still not sure when we get back. And I see that in your background, you're also working from home, so it leaves us more vulnerable because obviously we are not using office like for us for county organization. We usually have servers, firewalls in place when we are using the county. Right now, I'm using my own Wi-Fi.
Right. Right.
It's Verizon and it's secure, but obviously it cannot be as secure as a Ethernet wire going into my laptop, right? So some of these are things which we want to understand and we want our community to understand. And so that's why we have the expert you today. Okay. So
Great.
let me ask you a few things. Okay. Can you tell us top 5 steps as a small business should be doing to increase their cybersecurity and prevent cyber attacks on their business, especially as it relates to employees working remotely and taking classes online?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of things companies to do. If I had to think of 5, one of the top ones would have to be, making sure you have a good antivirus solution in place. That's like one of the most basic protections that you can have. A lot of people with their personal computers, they have like McAfee or Malwarebytes or something like that. All those little protections are good. You want to make sure that your staff is able to identify phishing emails, making sure you educate your staff on that. One of the biggest things when it comes to phishing emails is education. That's really the best way to prevent somebody falling into the hands of a malicious person on the other end. Another thing is you want to make sure you have a complex passwords policy. You'd be surprised how many people are out there and their passwords are their last name 123. And then when it's asked them to change their password, they changed it to their last name 123 exclamation point. So yeah. The next thing is you want to make sure users only have access to company resources that relates to their roles and position. A lot of companies, they may not have those access controls. So if an employee, accesses the network, they have access to pretty much all the files on there, even if it doesn't relate to their position. And the last one, last but not least, one that I think is probably one of the most important ones is implementing multi-factor authentication. You'll see a lot now, like even things like logging into your email, personal email, or your bank account, or no matter what it is, when you log in, it'll ask to send a text or notification to your cell phone or something like that. That's one of the best ways. That's actually endorsed by Microsoft. 99.9% of account hacks can be prevented by implementing multi-factor authentication.
With so many people working remotely and taking classes online, does that increase the chances that someone or the company they work for will be hacked?
Yeah, prior to COVID era, a lot of businesses set up their network to work in the office. They didn't really need to think about their entire workforce working from home. Obviously, home networks were never meant to, prevent the malicious things that happen to businesses. Homes are before they just weren't targeted like businesses were. So that's a concern nowadays. And I think you're right. I think that if the security controls that we just spoke about are not in place, then yes, there's a higher concern for being hacked while working remotely or taking classes online.
Okay, Zoom is Zoom as a company is in the media. A lot of videos are happening. We are also using a different platform. This is a new one for me.
Mhm.
We've been working with our media team. They're a brilliant team. They keep innovating. So they recommended this platform, which is able to deliver some high quality products. So every day there's a new product coming out. What are your thoughts about these video conferencing meeting? Are they secure? Can they be easily hacked? What protocol should we be following, or any inputs on those?
Well, I think they all have their good points and their bad points. I mean, you would really have to dig into, the back end of how those things have been set up, how they interact with your computer. What permissions are you providing them when you install that application on your phone? You want to make sure that the big ones are probably safer than ones that maybe have never heard of. But that's one of the things that you can look out for. When you install an application on your phone, it's going to ask you for permissions. You actually want to pay attention to those permissions that it's asking you to have access to. It's just asking you to provide it access to the files on your cell phone or the files on your laptop. Well, then why does a video conferencing service need access to my files? So you want to think about things like that, but also it also comes back to some of the security measures that we spoke about earlier, making sure you have a complex password. You don't want somebody logging into your account, attending your meetings, and getting private info about your company because you had a weak password. So all of those things are things that you want to be making sure that you have in place, regardless of what platform they're using.
Mhm. Great answer. Thank you. Similar, I'm gonna follow on that same question. Like, what should some of the mandatory things employees should be asking, and employers should be making sure when people are working from home? Uh, what should it be they doing? Something I know you said some of the basic things they should follow. Any thoughts on that? Like,
The way a lot of malicious content can access your computer is by things being out of date. Usually, when you update something, there's security patches that are included. You want to make sure that your computer is getting the latest patches. You also want to make sure you're using a secure Wi-Fi network. At home, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is password protected. You don't want your neighbor, accessing that, or just having using a public Wi-Fi. So those are things that the employee can do. Another thing that maybe we haven't talked about is hard drive encryption. Windows comes with something called Bitlocker, which you can enable on your computer. And if you lose your laptop or something, when the person is trying to reformat your hard drive, or trying to access things or change things or re-image it, it'll actually ask for that Bitlocker key for it to do that. So there's different measures that you can take outside of the big five that we talked about earlier, that the employee themselves can actually do to help secure everything on their end.
If I'm accessing public Wi-Fi, what few things I should not be doing? Like, not going to the C drive, not try to avoid some confidential data, or something on those lines. Since I have to use public Wi-Fi, and should I go to a Starbucks? Should I go to a library? Or maybe, I've heard like some fireplaces, stations also have Wi-Fi. So any thoughts on that? On two loaded question. If I need to access, where?
Yeah.
And if I do it, what kind of things should I keep in mind?
Yeah. So the problem with public Wi-Fi's is there's not really a lot that you can do but avoid them. You really need to we really encourage using a private Wi-Fi. If you know a friend whose Wi-Fi is working, I would recommend talking to a friend before going to Starbucks. Now, I will say that a lot of companies, what they can do, and this is difficult for the employee themselves to do, but what a lot of companies can do is looking into getting a VPN, a virtual private network, to their company's network. Basically, it's just a secure connection. So really, no matter where you're using it from, no one can really tap into that. It's a secure way to access that network. So, we really recommend, looking into getting a VPN. But besides that, you really, really want to do your best to make sure that no matter where you go, you're on a private Wi-Fi network, because the thing about public networks is that they don't have the security measures available to protect you. I mean, you can do your best to not access certain files yourself while you're using those networks, but that doesn't mean that other people are not accessing those files while you're using it, if that makes sense. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. You answered it very well. And I think that's a good idea. Go to a neighbor, go to somebody you trust rather than public.
Right.
So, for example, if I'm maybe you can do checks. If you're private, public, go to a library. I've heard libraries are a little bit secure, and try to access certain data, and just try to minimize your exposure as much as you can. Is also a good suggestion. There's a saying that it's you are either hacked and you don't know about it, right? Is that true? I'm hearing a lot of things that some of the people are already hacked and they don't know about it. And if that is true, how can we find out? What can we do?
Right. So there's a lot that goes into that. You're absolutely correct. A lot of malicious, you call them hackers or whatever you call them, like the people out there who mean to do you harm, mean to take your information. A lot of people think of them as like what they see in the movies, like they get on your computer, they're immediately downloading data and things like that. Well, it's not really like that in the real world. Somebody hacks into your network or your computer and they sit for months. They'll just sit and just watch everything that you do, files that you access, the drives that you're going to for that information. They'll sit and watch that information, and what they're doing is it's like somebody getting ready to rob a bank. You know, they don't just go in and ask for the money. They watch the location. They see where the security guards are going. They seeing, you know, what time they go in to turn the vault, you know, wheel and all that different stuff. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's very true. Like a lot of times you may already be hacked and not even know it. And that way they can get away doing certain things without you even knowing about it. So doing those 5 things that we talked about in the very beginning can prevent those things from happening. Now, to find out if you're hacked already, you know, antivirus tools can tell you if there's malicious files being put on your computer or things are being deleted. There's tools that you can run on the internet that will, you know, scan your device to check those things. If you haven't implemented those security protocols already, doing things like changing your password can be a simple fix. Somebody who hasn't changed their password in 6 months, if they get hacked, maybe the reason why the person got in was because they didn't change their password. So now changing their password has eliminated that access for that malicious threat that's just been sitting on their network. There's also, you know, monitoring tools that will actually monitor, you know, how much memory that your computer is using, how much CPU your computer is using. Things that are out of the normal will create alerts, and you can have that sent to yourself, or depending on how the tool is, you can use those tools to get more visibility than you would have just by sitting at your computer. That's actually analyzing how your computer is interacting with, you know, its performance and things like that.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. It's a tough world out there, and it's getting complicated by the minute. And so, if somebody is already, I'm already hacked, for example, my computer is already hacked and everything is done, and if I change the password, does that kick them out, or they already in?
It doesn't kick them out, but a lot of things are set up nowadays that if without, you know, authenticating, it'll time out. So a lot of cases that could help. Again, one of the things that I'll mention is multi-factor authentication. Having something sent to your phone. The next time when it times out, the next time that malicious threat tries to access your computer or the network or whatever, when it asks them to send them the code that was sent to your phone, they definitely don't have access then, unless they also have your phone, which the chance of that happening is astronomical. You know, there would be a very rare instance where that would be the case. So using multi-factor authentication would be a great way to prevent people from hacking your account. But also, if they're already on there, once it times out, they're not going to have access to it again. So, you know, I think multi-factor authentication is really the best way to prevent. I mean, there's not always a 100% sure way to, you know, make sure that the person gets kicked out once they're already in, but it's a great start by implementing those security protocols.
Yeah, I have Google Chrome, right? So Google Chrome, whenever I'm trying to payment, it's my information is almost every time there, right? I put my name, like if I'm trying to buy something from a website, my information always comes up already, and it also lets me choose which card I want to use. And it's scary sometimes, but it's very convenient, right? I had to buy some ticket online. I could just do it over my phone in like 2 seconds because all the information was already there. So that is pretty interesting, but a little scary as well, right? Should people be doing that, or should people be avoiding
So when it comes to data mining, it's hard to avoid it. You have your cell phone in your pocket. You have, you know, the Google Home and Alexas and all the different devices. My Alexa just beeped because I said Alexa. But they're always listening to us, right? They're always gathering information about us. It is concerning. But I think it's also the way that the direction that technology is going. I don't know if you've heard of, the Internet of Things, but there's a new wave of technology where everything is going to be connected, and it's going to be, unless you're living out in the woods somewhere with absolutely no cellular signal or Wi-Fi or any of those things like that, they're going to be tracking every move we make, what we like, what type of coffee you have in the morning, what type of eggs you have for breakfast. Every little thing is going to be tracked. In terms of what we can do about it, when you're using Google Chrome or you're using Firefox or all those browsers, unless you're using a trusted browser on a private network, on a private computer, you typically want to make sure that you have autofill or auto-saving passwords or things like that. You want to make sure that those things are disabled. A lot of things when you log into, it'll ask you, is this a trusted browser? Are you on a public network? You want to answer those questions honestly, because they'll be the difference between somebody stealing your laptop and opening up your browser and then having access to everything you have. So you just want to make sure that you are being very, very careful with that stuff, and making sure that, if you're not comfortable with that information being saved and being potentially put into the hands of somebody you don't want to have access to it, you want to make sure that those things are disabled in your browser settings.
Jonathan, thank you so much for some insight and great in-depth. I think our community, our businesses would have really gained some interesting viewpoint from your wealth of knowledge. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I
Thank you for having me.
appreciate your partnership and your commitment to Prince George's County. We value you being here, and we wish you the very best. And please stay safe.
All right. Thank you so much.